It's Sunday morning. It's week 15. It's the fantasy playoffs. This is Fantasy Football Today Express. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. That's Heath Cummings. All right, Heath, we got a lot to get to here with all the injury news from the weekend. Starting with Friday, we got some good news for Zach Charbonnet. Bad news, obviously, for Ken Walker. Charbonnet, clearly a must-start running back. How high do you have him ranked?
He is inside of my top 10. I think he's one spot behind Chuba Hubbard, a must-start top 10 running back.
Yeah, he's the easy one. Now we get to the fun ones here with some of these other running back situations. So let's start with Bucky Irving because we expected him to be out. We thought Rachaad White's going to be an absolute superstar for this weekend. I'm a little bit concerned about Bucky Irving with the back, as we saw the last time he played. Wasn't able to finish the game. How do you have the Bucs running backs ranked?
This is probably the most difficult one of the day. I've currently got both Bucky Irving and Rachaad White ranked as low-end number 2 running back options. There's a lot of volume available. That's the good thing in this offense, both in the running game and the passing game. So they could both have double-digit carries. They could both see 3 or 4 targets. There is more risk than usual for Bucky Irving, but there's a lot more upside for him than there are for most running backs that are ranked in that RB25 range. So I would definitely start him over Sincere McCormick, Ramondre Stevenson, Isaiah Pacheco. I would rather start Jonathan Taylor and Rico Dowdle, guys like that.
So you have Rachaad White ranked higher than Bucky Irving?
I have Bucky Irving one spot ahead of Rachaad White.
Okay, I have it the other way just because I'm a little concerned. I'm just worried that how healthy is the back? Clearly they feel good enough to play him, so that's a good sign. So I agree with you. He should be a number 2 running back. But as we've seen, they both kind of worked in tandem for a good portion of the stretch where Bucky Irving was great. It just was Bucky was outperforming him and actually getting more work in the passing game. But coming off the game Rachaad White just had, I wonder if they give him maybe a little bit more of an opportunity here, and certainly with the work in the passing game. So I'm going to give Rachaad White a little bit of a nod, but look, it's good to have Bucky Irving on the field, and hopefully he takes advantage of this matchup against the Chargers and does not re-injure his back, especially for anybody that has him on a bye. Looking forward to getting him back next week. So we'll see what happens there. All right, for the Jets, we got Breece Hall expected to play. Did not practice all week, but he is good to go with the knee injury. How do you feel about Hall? And then do you have any interest still in Braylon Allen or Isaiah Davis?
This one is almost as difficult for me just because Hall, like Irving, coming off of an injury, really a big question mark all week long. The other thing is the last time that he played in a game, he had a 57% rush share. So he was still doing most of the works on early downs, but he only had a 3% target share. Both Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen had more targets than Breece Hall the last time that he played. So I'm also ranking him as a low-end number 2 running back. I would start him over the Tampa Bay backs. Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis are now both just kind of touchdown dependent flexes in that RB 40-ish range.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for people that went in all this week on the free agent running backs. I mean, Patrick Taylor obviously did not play on Thursday. Didn't matter, on Thursday. And then you have the 2 Jets guys who we thought, okay, maybe one or the other would be relevant this week, especially with a great matchup against Jacksonville. And now here we go with Breece Hall back. But it's obviously great to have Breece Hall back. I'm with you. I think he's more of a number 2 running back. I actually would take Rachaad White over Breece Hall because, again, the work in the passing game and a little bit more, I think a little bit more confidence in what the situation is there with White versus Irving versus Hall. So it's just really nerve-wracking to say that here we are in the fantasy playoffs. We have to trust these injured running backs that didn't practice all week. And then we get to the other guy that we're talking about here, which is Tony Pollard. Did not practice all week, but we kind of expect him to play the entire time. And that's the report that we're going off of. So they are going to test out the ankle pregame. Do you have confidence in Tony Pollard that he will be okay? And are you starting him?
He is my favorite running back that we've talked about so far, besides Zach Charbonnet. I would start Charbonnet over him. But yeah, a borderline top 12 running back. Listen, you're not going to feel very good if he plays 5 plays and leaves injured, but that's kind of the types of risks that we're having to take at this point. I would start him definitely over the Bucs or the Jets.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here on Fantasy Football Today Express. When we come back, we'll wrap up the wide receiver, tight end injuries, and then get to some of your questions. All right, let's talk about the wide receiver injuries. McConkey is expected to be a game-time decision. They're going to work him out pregame, dealing with the shoulder and the knee injury. It's a 4:25 start in the game for the Chargers and the Bucs. How are you approaching McConkey and maybe Justin Herbert?
So I think it just really comes down to what is your other option. If you have another wide receiver in our top 48 that's playing at 4:30 or later, then I would be trying to wait it out for McConkey. And if he plays, I'd view him as a high-end number 3 wide receiver. If you really are like scraping the bottom of the barrel for a wide receiver, like you don't have Josh Palmer, you don't have Quentin Johnston, you don't have anybody that's ranked near those guys, then I think you just go ahead and play whoever you've got in the early game. Because Like, we don't know for sure that Ladd McConkey is going to play. And then even if he is active, he has the same risk that we just talked about with Bucky Irving and the same risk that we just talked about with Breece Hall. So it's a double risk thing. It really depends on who you have on your bench.
Easy to go get Josh Palmer if he's available and just sort of mix and match those two guys. As we saw, Palmer had 9 targets last week in place of McConkey. Desperation. There's going to be some guys in the 4 o'clock and later games. I'm thinking maybe like a Marvin Mims who's had some production, recently for the Broncos. Trying to think some of the guys in the later games.
Yeah, and I think that's what I would say. Like, if I can get Palmer, then I'm waiting. If I have to trust Marvin Mims, then I'm probably just trying to start somebody else.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking more like the deeper leagues, those type of guys that, just trying to find somebody. All right, Josh Downs also expected to play, coming back from the shoulder injury. Shane Steichen wasn't 100% committed to it, but all the reports indicate he's going to play. How do you feel about Josh Downs?
I'm not super optimistic. There's always the risk of a low volume Anthony Richardson passing game. And for the most part, when we've seen Pittman and Downs together with Anthony Richardson, Pittman's been the number one in terms of targets. So I don't really want to start Josh Downs. He's a flex. I prefer Pittman and Downs this week.
Yes, I would go Downs over Pittman just because I think based on how these guys will operate, probably Surtain sees a little bit more of Pittman. Downs in the slot. That's not where exactly Surtain goes all the time. Pittman more the big physical receiver, and they are down Riley Moss. So I do think there's an opportunity here for Josh Downs to make some plays. We'll talk about it quickly when we get to the weather real quick. David Njoku, not expected to play. Any interest in the well, I guess let's start with Jameis Winston because I know you're really high on Jameis. We got weather concerns in Cleveland. We got no tight end now expected to play without Njoku. How do you feel about Jameis?
I'm really struggling with this game because I just always go look and see what Kevin Roth says about it over at Roto Grinders. And he's got it as a yellow orange. And if it's a full orange, that's the point where I start making adjustments. Yellow orange, it sounds like this is really a big question mark. So it's a risk tolerance thing. I still think Jameis has top 5 potential this week. The Chiefs defense hasn't been particularly great. Jameis has been awesome as a fantasy starter. There's also a really low downside. I would start Jameis over Mahomes. He's a little, I think I had him 8 on Thursday when we talked. He's 11 now.
Okay, so you did downgrade him a little bit. Yeah, he's outside my top 12, Jameis. I'm nervous just because no Njoku, weather concerns, no Tillman. He also is not going to play. So just having the 2 receivers clearly is enough for Jameis, but you're losing weapons, bad weather. Steve Spagnuolo could make things a little uncomfortable for Jameis. I know they have done a little poorly against quarterbacks lately, but they did step up against Justin Herbert last week, who did have a receiver missing. So a little bit concerned about Jameis based on where the week started, where we are right now. And then one defensive note, which hopefully will help the Falcons offense in general. Max Crosby is now out for the season. So IDP leagues, obviously you got to find a replacement for one of the best pass rushers. And this Raiders defense should be even worse. So maybe Kirk Cousins can find the end zone for the first time in 4 weeks. All right, let's get some questions, Heath, before we wrap this up. So you throw them up and we'll talk about it. All right, so Cameron wants to know Ramondre Stevenson or Najee Harris this week. I wish we knew the format, but let's assume PPR, half PPR. How you approaching this?
I'm going Najee just barely over Ramondre in all formats. They're both borderline number 2s. I've actually got them behind the Bucs and behind Breece Hall.
I do hope that Ramondre, fresh legs, comes back from the bye week and does some damage against the Cardinals' run defense like Charbonnet did, not to that extent, but takes advantage of it. But yeah, I agree. I'd go Najee as well. Probably have a big role in the passing game without George Pickens. Tua Tagovailoa or Sam Darnold? Who are you going there?
They're both top 12, but I will go with Sam Darnold.
I like them both as potential top 5 quarterbacks, but I will go Darnold as well. Next, James, I guess it's Josh Palmer. Like James Palmer. James Palmer's the reporter. Josh Palmer or Josh Downs?
That Colts game at 4:30 also?
The Colts game, yeah, it's in Denver, yeah.
Okay, so that's really easy. If there's no Ladd McConkey, I would start Josh Palmer. If Ladd McConkey plays, I would start Josh Downs.
All right, I would go Downs either way. Next question. Bucky Irving or Sam Laporta, PPR?
I'm going Bucky.
I would go Bucky as well, unless we get some report that he's, going to be. Remember, both these games are also 4 o'clock. So you get a report pregame, hey, Bucky's going to be the backup, then you go Laporta. Marvin Harrison Jr., Adam Thielen.
I will go Thielen.
I will go Thielen as well. Need a flex. Khalil Shakir, Jalen Waddle, or Cade Otton?
I'm still going to go Shakir.
I'm going to go Shakir as well, but I do like Jalen Waddle going back home to Houston, so we'll see if that matters for him. But Shakir is the safer option. Breece Hall or Devon Achane? That's easy.
Achane.
Darnell Mooney or Jalen Waddle?
Mooney.
Yeah, especially, again, no Max Crosby. This should be a huge game for the Falcons. Please, Kirk Cousins, deliver. Mooney or Waddle? We answered that. All right, so we're going Mooney. Pick 3, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, Sincere McCormick, Breece Hall. Wow, so who's the odd man out here?
I would sit Sincere McCormick.
Yes, sincerely sit McCormick. Next one. We'll go a couple more. Brian Thomas or DK Metcalf?
Brian Thomas.
Yeah, easy one for me too. All right, 2 more. Justin Herbert or Caleb Williams?
I'm going Caleb.
I'm going Herbert, and this is again, you'll know if McConkey plays. If McConkey plays, it's Herbert. If McConkey's out, it's Caleb. James Cook or Alvin Kamara, half PPR?
Alvin Kamara for me.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara for me too. I'm nervous about both these guys, to be honest with you. All right, last one. Jameis Winston or Aaron Rodgers?
I do like Aaron Rodgers a lot this week too. Against Jacksonville. I'm going to go with Jameis. And I'll just say, like, this was one where, because weather forecasts do change, I'd probably be checking about 12:30 and seeing what people are saying on Twitter, what Kevin Roth is saying right before game time about that weather in Cleveland. But assuming it doesn't get worse, I would go Jameis.
I would go Jameis also. I am rooting very heavily against the Jets today because Heath and I are in a tough matchup. My team sucked on Thursday night with Matthew Stafford not playing great, and Puka was great. Kyron Williams was okay. Heath is going to beat me in the YOLO league because he's got Breece Hall back. He's got Devontae Adams. He's got Garrett Wilson. So go, Jags, go. Shut down the Jets offense, and then maybe have a chance.
You do currently have an illegal lineup in that league also.
Oh, no, I know. I'm waiting until make a decision who to drop.
Hiding your starters.
I want to see what happens. That'll do it for us. Evan Ingram also out, by the way, if you haven't seen. So Brenton Strange. There are some decent desperation tight ends. You got Brenton Strange. You got Jordan Akins in Cleveland, and there's one. Stone Smart. For the Chargers. So some desperation tight end plays if you're missing Evan Ingram. All right, that'll do it for us. We'll be back here at 11:30 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, answering all of your questions. You can check out CBS Sports HQ at 10 a.m. Eastern as well. Get those lineups right, check the weather, and make sure everything is good for your fantasy playoff rosters. For Heath Cummings, I'm Jamie Eisenberg. This is Fantasy Football Today Express.